So welcome folks to our next edition of the Innovation Moment. And the topic that we are tackling today is at the heart of anybody doing innovation, whether you are an entrepreneur, whether you are part of a large organization, government entity, and it's tackling the question on how do you scale innovation? How do you find that balance between disruption and discipline? And joining me for the conversation today are Carla Johnson and Geoff Gibbins. As the CEO of Rethink Labs, Carla Johnson helps organizations design and build the ideal culture to accelerate innovation, engagement, and growth. Through her proven frameworks and creative approaches, she equips leaders and employees to increase engagement, expand competitive advantages, and deliver sustainable shareholder value. Also joining us is Geoff Gibbins. Geoff is a principal director in our WhatIf Innovation Group at Accenture. He has 15 years of experience working with clients across industries to help them invent and launch new businesses and create the organizational change they need to do this more successfully. Welcome, Carla and Geoff.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Great to see you, Geoff.
You too, Carla.
All right, maybe our first question starting off, since this is the innovation moment, and Carla, given that you just released a book called Rethink Innovation, got to ask the question, Carla, what does innovation mean to you?
You know, it's a fundamental question, Shivani, and it's interesting because when I was doing research for my book, I realized there was a point where I needed to share my definition of innovation, because I think if you ask 20 different people, what does innovation mean to you, you can get 40 different responses. There is, you know, it's not like accounting or law or many other professions or practices. There's so much subjectivity about what innovation is. And I define innovation as the ability to consistently come up with new, great, and reliable ideas. And each of those words might sound simple, but they're very important when you unpack it just a little bit. So a new idea is something that doesn't necessarily have to be new and never ever done before, but perhaps new to your industry. So for example, McDonald's patterned their drive-through for their restaurants after a Formula One pit stop. Very new for the fast food industry. A great idea is one of those ideas that when you hear it, you think, oh man, that was such a great idea. I wish I would have thought of that. And then a reliable idea, I mean, really at the end of the day, innovation has to show value. So a reliable idea is one that has a bottom line financial impact. So when people and teams and companies have the ability to consistently deliver ideas that have all three characteristics, that's when I define them as being innovative, and they're able to deliver this over long periods of time.
Fantastic. Geoff, what's your definition of innovation?
Yeah, great question. I would say I think about it in terms of solving big problems in new ways. So big problems, things that people care about, right? It's not just things that won't have an impact in the world. And the new ways, I think there's an interesting way of thinking about that. I think often people think of innovation and think it has to be nanotechnology or something that we've never heard of before. And I think to your point, Carla, sometimes it can actually be quite simple, right? Sometimes it's actually about rearranging the way that things already happen today and things that already exist just to make things work better. And actually those simplest things can actually be some of the most disruptive innovations, because they actually just make life better and lean into the behaviors and the assets and things that already exist in the world.
So love both the definitions. It's about coming up with the ideas, but then what about scaling those ideas, right? So you come up with the reliable ideas, you come up with those great ideas, but what about actually being able to, and it may not necessarily be commercialization, because scaling is not always commercialization. So when we talk about scaling innovation, what does that mean to you?
I'll jump in on that one, because I think one of the things that I've seen, especially as we've moved into a more digital oriented world, hyper accelerated these last few years. But I think when we talk about scaling, there's this talk about the three-legged stool. It's people, processes, and technology. And I think we have more processes that have actually inhibited our ability to scale and innovate. We have more technology than we will ever know what to do with. But I think the part that has been grossly ignored is the people part. So when we talk about scaling innovation, and I think this is particularly important for enterprises, is that we have to look at the people side of it. And that really involves mindset. How do I behave and what do I believe about innovation and my role in it for all employees? And then also a skill set. To scale innovation takes specific skills and collaboration and things that we aren't used to doing. So I think when we look at scaling innovation, we really need to look at the people side of how we accomplish it. And I think that's the part that has the greatest opportunity for organizations that they probably don't realize.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the people side is really often overlooked, and it's the mindsets and the expectations that people come into at the start when you have an idea. How do you actually commercialize that really makes a key difference. I think of this place called Innovation Heaven, which is like where all the ideas go that didn't come to life, right? And I think so. Part of the goal of commercialization is sort of like preventing further population growth in Innovation Heaven. And I think it's really about like, how do you actually achieve the potential of that idea that you had at the start of that journey, even in an unexpected way. So I think it's important to know that, you know, things will change. You know, you might have an initial idea, and as you enter into commercialization, you have a vision of how it's going to come to life, and it's going to be amazing in all these specific ways. Things are going to change, and I think it's really important to recognize that. And it's not just about the feedback you get from the market throughout that commercialization approach, which is critical. It's also how do you build the organizational support and belief around something throughout that journey, which is sometimes tough, right? There are tough decisions and things that you learn that you were wrong about. And it's important to recognize at the start when you have that idea that you're kind of basically wrong, and you're trying to figure out how you get less wrong as you go forward.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's that scale, you know, the iterative approach, the fail fast, scale fast kind of approach. Love that. But and I love your the coining of the phrase innovation heaven. Now,
the big place.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's a big place, unfortunately.
It's a big place. Very true. Yes.